So for over 3 years, I would travel to Richmond. I didn't have a job. I didn't have a title. I wasn't, anyone's understudy or liaison. I was Aaron Rouse, and I wanted to say, and I told those guys, teach me what you know.
Thank you, Mr. Aaron Rouse, Councilman Rouse, for joining us today on the show. Aaron Keels, you are a frequent here now. This is like your third week in a row.
Right.
So you're almost like my co-host. So definitely appreciate you making the connection happen. I think this is a really good time to have this conversation with us planning on reopening the city, and other parts of the states is reopening come tomorrow with phase 1. So no better person than to bring in Councilman to just talk a little bit about how things have been and where do we see things going in the future, and other topics. So Councilman Rouse, you mind introducing yourself a little bit? And for those that don't,
did you tag us?
I did not tag you, but I can. I'll tag you while
Sounds good.
Just for him to share. Sorry about that.
Sounds good. Thank you. First of all, Aaron, for reaching out to me and connecting me with Mr. Cavelle. It's a privilege to get on here and talk to you guys about some really important issues. Not only here that surrounding our local area, but also throughout the country. I think that that I can help shed some light on and give you my 2 cents worth on that. But again, I'm Councilman Rouse of Virginia Beach. I'm originally from Norfolk. A lot of people don't know that I'm originally from Norfolk, Virginia, but I spent the majority of my childhood growing up in Virginia Beach. I was just so happened to have football talents God blessed me with, and was able to earn a full scholarship to Virginia Tech, where I then went on to graduate from there and played in the National Football League for the Packers, Giants, and Cardinals, and retired. Got to give a shout out to moms. My mom's, Mother's Day just passed, and to all the mothers out there. Again, my mother raised 4 of us by herself, single parent, worked numerous jobs to make sure that we got an education. My father is one who's been incarcerated in jail all our lives, and so it was really important for my mother to instill in us a sense of education. We grew up poor, so her main thing was to just graduate from high school, stay out of trouble and graduate from high school. And so it just so happens that with the work of her and so many others, community leaders and, a few coaches there who helped me stay on the path, and actually a police officer who was at our school helped, break down some walls that typically a young black male such as myself growing up in the hood, we normally don't even talk to law enforcement, but he helped to break down a lot of stereotypes from that angle and helped me be successful to where I am. I ran for office back in 2018, and mostly because I love Virginia Beach. I love our area. I love the 757. And for me, if I could come from those humble beginnings, meager backgrounds, I wanted other kids to know that they could do the same. And I wanted to provide them more and ample opportunities to be as successful as I am.
That's a pretty cool story. I mean, I had no idea that you was from Norfolk one, and also you had that type of upbringing. That I think that kind of gives you a little bit more purpose to type of go into that serving field and feel a more of a connection to the average person because you didn't come from much. Does that make sense?
Most definitely. I mean, for me, you talk about, working through the STOP program, working as a helping hand to the janitors at the schools throughout the summer to buy school clothes, to help your mother out with bills, to help put food on the table. I remember times, man, where I would get up 6 o'clock in the morning to ride my bike all the way to the school bus garage where they had me working, pumping diesel and washing school buses and picking gum from underneath the seat. And I would get off in the afternoon and ride all the way down on the other side of Virginia Beach, or at least First Colonial Road. It felt like the other side of Virginia Beach, and go to football practice. And then I would go to practice and I would ride home and do it all over again. So I contribute that only to my mother, but to my grandfather, who was he was an Army veteran from North Carolina, big husky guy, and he gave me 3 important principles to live by. And he said, you know, make sure you keep God first. You work for everything that you want, and your word is your bond. And so that's how I live my life. That's what I try to instill in my own kids, and also to the youth who I speak to.
No, that's awesome. So for someone like me, and also for the average person, I, I think that not a lot of people pay attention to politics as far as the hierarchy of, you know, the senators and the governors, councilmen, and other positions. Um, I actually bought a book recently because with everything that's going on right now in the climate, I was in Barnes and Noble and I pick up one of those dummies book, Politics for Dummies, because I feel as though I need to know a little bit more, you know? So do you mind breaking down maybe the role of a councilman, but also where you fall among the other things, because we'll touch on you know, changing the trajectory for your career by running for other offices. But tell us a little bit about how that plays out with, you know, the politics.
Sure. I think initially, you know, Aaron can tell you, you know, my competitive spirit was always there. You know, being one that started playing sports at such a young age, and then being, you know, all state, then going to college and being one of the premier athletes in the nation, and then being able to be drafted, make it to the highest level of sports. And then all of a sudden you get to in a car accident and you can't play that sport anymore. You really have to rely on your education. And this is where your mother's, all those years, your mother said, make sure you graduate from high school, make sure you graduate from college, get your education. This is where it really comes into play, because I couldn't play the sport that I love so much anymore. But yeah, I still had my brain. I still had to live. I still had to find a career and function. And one of the things people always ask me, well, how did you make that transition? Well, I really never really saw myself getting into politics, playing at Virginia Tech or playing sports, but as one that where you are always making relationships, you're always networking, and you are always, you know, making friends. It's a path that just so happened I happened to be on. So that moment when I had to retire from the National Football League, I got an opportunity to go up to Richmond to the General Assembly and just see how they do things up there. You know, see exactly what's going on up there. And I want to give a shout out to James Church, my godfather. He was the reason why I went up there. Now, I told James that day, I remember him calling me like yesterday. I said, I don't want to go to Richmond. You know, there's nothing but a bunch of politicians in Richmond, you know, guys sitting across from each other and ladies just talking. I don't want to do that. And he said, no, you should go. You might like something. You may learn something. And so I take this trip to Richmond, and obviously using my background in football, there are a lot of Packers fans. There's a whole lot of Virginia Tech fans up there. And the moment I stepped foot on Capitol grounds, I was blown away. I didn't realize how much, you know, authority and power that those delegates actually had when concerning our area and the place where I come from. When you talk about making sure your schools have funding, or you're making sure your SNAP benefits that you can feed your family if you're poor, you're talking about all your tax credits or taxes there is. I didn't realize where was the connection and how important voting really is. And so I got invited to come back. I left that day. I said, hey, you know, met all these delegates and officials. I said, can I come back up here? I want to learn more. And they said, sure, come back. So for over 3 years, I would travel to Richmond. I didn't have a job. I didn't have a title. I wasn't, you know, anyone's understudy or liaison. I was Aaron Rouse, and I wanted to say, and I told those guys, teach me what you know. I didn't get into the, you know, whole party affiliation side. I knew if you were there, there was something I could learn from you. And so when by the time I'm after 3 years of studying, I say, it's time for me to run for local office. There's a lot of people in my community and where I'm from who need more access to resources, who need more access to opportunities, who need a voice. And for those kids who are looking up, at politicians and for mentors, they need someone else who can broaden their horizon, And so I take that step, and actually, a couple mentors told me, say, listen, local politics can be messy. You could do better at the state level. And I said, no. If I can't improve exactly where I come from, what good would I be up here at the state or any higher level?
So speaking of local politics and doing things at the state level and being able to make a difference, and how important it is to vote, would you say that someone like you is easier to reach, and we should really focus on local elections rather than the bigger stuff, so that way we can hold you guys accountable to spread the word of the things that is important to us higher up the chain?
Well, I would say voting regardless is important across all the boards. I mean, across the entire board. If you take President Obama's election, for example, he got elected, but didn't necessarily have the Congress to support the initiatives that he wanted to put forth. And so you have to vote in for the congressional races. They're just as important as the local races or the state races, because we're all on a team here. And so and not to mention, especially for minorities and African Americans, there was a civil rights era, there was the voting rights era. Many of our people fought for that right to vote, and I just have a hard time with people overlooking that and thinking, voting is not necessarily for me, or your vote doesn't count. It does count, and trust me, it counts a lot.
So break it down a little bit as far as like governors, right?
Yes.
Mayors, senators, councilmen, and everybody in between. Just briefly, how does that flow right there?
So here in Virginia, we're in Virginia, right? And so Virginia is a Dillon rule state, which means all our localities, authorities comes from the state, comes from the state.
What rule state? Say that one more time.
Dillon rule, DILL, yeah, Dillon rule state.
Okay.
And that means all of our authority basically comes from the state. It's the reason why the governor can shut down our businesses and shut down the beach. He can shut down Northern Virginia. Because we have given all our authority to the state General Assembly and the governor we've given them that authority. But here locally, council wise, we handle local taxes, street, schools, first our city services, water, fire, police, all of those things we handle here. But for those state example, to get state funding and resources in order to help us out with those things, and in order to help us have better transportation, or help us be able to bring more business here, or help us be able to offset some of the costs it takes to provide a police force or fire throughout our entire city. We need help with that to help us mitigate some of the concerns with our schools. We need help from the state level. And so all the state, state delegates and senators, they actually have their localities and elections, their districts who they report to. But then they actually, they work with the Congress and they work with the senator at the federal level to get funding back to the state. And then the state can make sure that funding disperses to the locality. So it's all a team.
Anything you want to add, Mr. Keels?
Yeah. Well, I actually had a question, but not necessarily related to that. What do you feel as a person that pretty much you played at the highest level, played football at the highest level, but now you're a councilman, soon to be mayor. Do you feel more gratification in doing this, or as far as more a personal satisfaction in doing this, or what kind of has taken you to the height of your, I guess what you feel better about doing?
Well, there's just two parts to that. I think anything you love doing, it's not work, right?
Right.
So whenever I played football, that was a release for me. It was a stress relief for me, and I just truly loved and enjoyed the game. But that was a game. That was a form of entertainment. And now that I am a councilman, I have more passion, more love, so to speak, because this is not a game. It's life, and it has real life consequences. But it's also about preparing our future. The youth is about helping society take that next step, our humanity. And we still have a lot of work to do, particularly growing up in a city that's predominantly white, where, African Americans are a minority. And, I don't think, I'm trying to remember, no, I haven't seen growing up a minority member of council member on our city council. And so those are the things where you plant those seeds in the youth mind that says, yeah, I saw Aaron Rouse out there on the football field, but wait a minute, now I see him in council chamber.
Right.
What is I try to teach the kids that it's education. It's this up here. I think a lot of times, especially coming from our background, so many kids, we want to escape poverty so bad that we try to look at what is the most, fastest way we can do that, or the most rewarding way. And we think about the sports because that's what we see. That's what society praises. Celebrity athletes, that's what they see on social media. And so a lot of times what they don't necessarily see is the lawyers, the doctors, the council members, the city workers, the policemen, the firemen, the teachers,
right.
There's do all. And it's like, you can be just as successful in that as well. You don't have to, every kid's dream shouldn't have to be an athlete or an entertainer. That's great, but we need more doctors. We need more lawyers. We need more politicians. We need more, we need to broaden the horizon, so to speak, in order to move not only, not only our interest for it, but humanity for it.
Right. And the reason I asked that is because, I've known you for some time, and you were a heck of a football player. But, and anytime I ever asked you for any kind of community involvement, you really seem to be in your element. You seem to be, very passionate, and again, I don't know many politicians, personally, but you seem real passionate about helping the youth. I remember I was coaching a football team, and I had a football team out there and just inviting people out, and you were out there, not only out there to watch the game, you gave a speech, to all the kids. And I think that, when I saw you there, you weren't Aaron Rouse, the NFL football player, even though you hadn't been councilman yet. You were Aaron Rouse, the community figure. It really seems like you have a real passion for the community that you came from, and that you haven't forgotten where you came from. That's why I asked, what's more gratifying to you? Because it just seems like this is really your calling. Not to say that football wasn't your calling, because again, you were a very successful football player as well. But I salute you for all that you stand for, and by all means, I can vouch for the sincerity of what you stand for. And,
thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think if I could add just something. For me, especially in this political round, a lot of people, they want to place you in a box. They want to say, oh, you with this, or you're affiliated with that. And for me, I know I love our city, but I love our kids, the youth, the future. Because a lot of times when I would play at First Colonial, or play for the Clovers, or Cook Redskins, I would walk off the field and I would have nobody to talk to. My mom would be working. Pops was already in jail or running the streets or something. And I know what that feeling like, of feeling like, no one cares, or no one is there for you, or no one is even thinking about or concerned about your future, or even inspiring you. So for me, it's like, man, like all stuff aside, like all council position, class, all that aside, like all these kids, like you are important. You are somebody. Like believe in yourself, and that's what I want to get them across. So like speaking to them is like speaking to the young Aaron Rouse that's walking off that field, that's feeling like no one cares. It's like, no, you this is my opportunity for, and that's why I always take the opportunity to lift their heads up and let them know, no, there's people out here who care and who's looking for you to become somebody. So
yeah, you got some folks tuning in that's echoing what you're saying, that says the truth when they experience it personally. Awesome. When they meet you. So that's definitely a good thing. Yeah, but speaking of not having a lot of minorities in council and just in politics in general, and also a lot of us focusing on sports or entertainment and stuff like that. A lot of times stuff gets blown out of proportion, or a lot of sensualization is going on with social media and things of that nature. Last week, Aaron and I was speaking about the unfortunate situation that happened in Georgia with Ahmaud Arbery. So I'd like to touch on that a little bit, but kind of from a local standpoint, we were trying to say, like, what can we do, as a group of young men who see things like this happen in other places, and know that it's a reality. What can we do to try to put our heads together to not have it happen locally here? Right. Are we able to, have some meetings with the police chiefs? Can we find out if they have any type of special training that they go through? Did it not happen as yet just by luck, and they're waiting on something happen for us to take action? And just in general, what are your thoughts on that? And how do you see us being able to stop making this become such a normal thing to happen?
Well, first of all, I extend my condolences to the family of Ahmaud Arbery. My condolences to him. But I think you understand, and we understand, particularly as a Black community, you have to vote. That is so important, because when more and more details are coming out about this tragedy, the guy suspected, the guy who killed Mr. Arbery was an officer who wasn't even what's the word I'm looking for here? Didn't have the proper credentials to continue on in that field. And then you had the district attorney who basically, looks like she did some improper things, making sure that he held his job now. And then, so you have to think, where is that chain of command? Where is that pressure that's going to come from to make sure that the laws that which all of us should abide by are being enforced, right? And that comes from voting. One of the things here locally, a lot of people may not know or may not even give more thought to, is Virginia Beach right now is looking for its next police chief, right? We are looking for our next police chief and hiring our next police chief. This is the time that you can take action now. You get together and say, this is what we are looking for in our next police chief. Our police force is looking to become more diverse. So it's not always about, getting the necessary people who live in our neighborhoods to police our neighborhoods, but it's about those who are already living in our neighborhood and our community stepping up and fulfilling those roles, becoming more police officers. Right now, we are hiring. I think we're 60 officers down in the city of Virginia Beach. We're looking forward to hiring. Now, there are some hiring hurdles that are in place. That's my job, which I'm trying to help ease those hurdles and making sure that we can hire more minority officers that understand what the plight is like for minority members living in this society. Sure, it's not enough to just, you know, for me, complain and point a finger. I want to do something about it. You know, I want to sit here and say, I'm not waiting on the sideline. I want to make sure we get action around it and do something about it. I want to put more people who look like myself, look like others, in a position to actually police our community. And I think it comes back to understanding that diversity is a good thing. You know, diversity is a great thing when you can see the perspective from other individuals. And you know, right now I think it's more of a humanity thing. You know, that's if you can't see the person across me as a human being, then that's an issue. You know, that's a real issue. Time and time again, I think we have seen around our country African Americans, black and brown people who are being victimized from those who are sworn to protect. Right. So now it's about holding them accountable. How do you hold them accountable? You need to vote, elect the mayor who understand this. You know, vote district attorneys who understand this. The mayor and them, I say so in that. Here in Virginia, your delegates, your governor, all that stuff matters. Like you're voting. I can't stress it enough. I think Malcolm X even said it that you know, your voting power is so strong, and yet people think that it's this thing that has no power. No, that's what they want you to think, you know, and we should take more advantage of that.
So speaking of voting and the importance of voting, with what's going on right now with COVID-19, that's a very hot topic because there's talks for the mail-in ballots and there's talk against it because obviously with November right around the corner and so much unsurety of how we will proceed forward when it comes closer to that time, it's already affecting campaigning. I'm sure you feeling the brunt of that, and it probably will last a little bit longer. How do you see COVID-19 affecting campaigning moving forward? And what are your thoughts as far as mail-in and ballots come November? Are you for or are you against it?
Well, I'm for any access or more access to the ballot. So, regardless if you have to vote, if you have to mail in our votes, or you know, or making sure that the voting precincts are sanitized and can handle voting, handle the voting public, then we need to make sure that's in place. So I'm for anything that gives more access to the ballot, and that's what we need. Yes, we understand COVID has presented a huge amount of challenges going forward, but like any challenge, you got to work it. You got to work the problem and find solutions. And you may have to have hybrid solutions. You got to become more innovative, think outside the box. You know, I think mail-in as well as voting in the precinct could become options in a safe and safe manner, of course. But again, I'm for all access to the ballot.
And as far as campaigning is concerned,
well, you know, I'm running for mayor now, and so the hardest thing about, you know, campaigning now is trying to get a message through COVID. You know, I literally put my campaign on the side because we're trying to find resources for our residents and for, you know, our business community. You know, the campaign can wait, and so this problem, COVID, has presented such an enormous problem, and it takes so much time to find the necessary resources for our community, that how can you campaign? How can you focus on that? So that's one of the issues. Then also being able to fundraise and raise necessary funds you need to get a message across in a time like this where when everyone is hurting and no one necessarily is not making money unless your name's Jeff Bezos. So
wow.
So beyond that, I don't know. Yeah. Mr. Bezos is about to be a trillionaire.
Isn't that crazy?
Right.
That's super wild right there.
Yeah.
But I'll wait till I get on that higher level of government before I'll make a statement on that. Right now, I'm just
smart. That's a smart thing to do.
Aaron, do you do you want to share your ultimate goal?
Yeah, you know, my ultimate goal right now is to move Virginia Beach forward. And you know, Aaron, I cannot, you know, I won't hide the fact I've been frustrated with, you know, the way our government has been responding to COVID. But even before COVID, you know, when I came on council, and here's the thing about, not to get ahead of myself, here's the thing about athletes in general, particularly team sports athletes, is that we know we have to work with somebody we don't necessarily agree with. You know,
Right.
we have to be able to do it in a respectful manner. We have to be able to come with humility. We also, in training camp, you are battling the next guy, you know, or woman for a roster spot sometimes, or to start.
Right.
And so you have to do it in a way that you don't deteriorate your friendship with this person you are competing against. But you both know it's for the betterment of the team, right? It's for the betterment of the team. And in politics, I feel like there has just been a lack of understanding that we are all, you know, we are all on the same page. We're all on the same team. Yes, I'm going to compete against you, but to hurt someone, and I'm not, you know, I'm not saying it's subliminals or anything, but to keep someone back from helping the team, that's a major issue. One of the things I saw right away from coming on, you know, police council, was that we have a lot of, Virginia Beach has the potential to be some place really, really special. The reason why I'm running for mayor, we have some place to be really, really special, but yet there's a certain level of complacency that, yeah, this is the way we've always done things. You know, this is the way we're going to continue to do things. And the world around us is changing. You know, the world around us is changing, and there's no one that's saying, listen, there's a better way of conducting meetings. You know, there's a better way of doing business, that making sure that everybody eats, right? Making sure everybody get a piece of the pie. And there's just a lack of understanding from that. And to be quite honest with you, you know, there's complacency. I feel as though there may be a sense of shelteredness that that somehow, a lack of understanding of the times we're in. We see the Myrtle Beaches, the Ocean Cities, the Charlotte, North Carolina, the LA's, we see all of these places they are always on the cusp of innovation. They're always taking the next step. And for some, they still think we are Princess Anne County. You know, like this is Virginia Beach. We are a large city, the largest city in the Commonwealth, and yet we don't act like it. That's an issue, and that's where my concern comes in. I didn't get on council to just hold a seat or become mediocre. You know, I got on council to move us forward. You know, let's move forward. I don't care who gets the credit. And to be quite honest, I don't necessarily get into the whole political party issue. Like, does this help the team or not?
Right.
Move the team forward or not? But yet you have those who've always played that game, who want to continue to play the political.
So speaking of team and coming together for a common cause, what have the communication been like with the other councilmen and women, the other mayors, in regards to communicating with the governors, with what's important to them in order to respond to COVID? Because like you said, the response could have been a little bit different. How do you think Virginia Beach itself has responded, and how would you grade that, and what could have been done different?
Poor. I would grade our response to COVID poor, and I mean that in all sincerity, right?
Wow.
You know, and here's why I say it, and I'm just honest. So I am. I think one of the things about a problem or that you're having, you have to confront it head on. You can't, you know, beat in the bush. It's for we would have and we should have. I don't think anyone foresaw COVID coming, first of all, right? And second of all, I think anyone's in a position of authority, such as our governor, such as the mayors, are around here, are in a pretty tough position. And I think trying to find a way to mitigate the problems with COVID, it's really tough and it's hard, but it's not an excuse to sit and wait for the state and wait for the federal level to come and save you. We have to work the issue from our end, do what we can do to provide resources and relief for our residents and businesses going forward. It's been very tough when you're the largest city in the Commonwealth, and yet you don't have streamlined communication with those at the state level, and somehow, letting party politics get in the way is affecting the team, is affecting Virginia Beach. Many a times, and I've seen on council, there was an ordinance and resolution brought forth back in March where it was recommended that we suspend the taxes or tax penalties on certain local taxes, property tax, real estate tax, that we suspend those penalties for late payments. It would take 3.5 weeks in March to approve that. Ask me what we did in 3.5 weeks.
What's that?
Nothing. Wow. 3.5 weeks went by. Secondly, it took 3 or more city council members on more than 2 occasions to hold a special session on the budget. We knew the budget was coming up. We understand the revenues are not going to be what they are. So why that we would only have one meeting on the budget, a week before we approve it? Or, why is that? Why aren't we constantly working this issue? Another important issue, and you can say, dealing with COVID, is a city manager. Right now, Virginia Beach is looking for a city manager. And by the way, who does the city manager hire? The police chief, right? But there's no urgency to hire a city manager when we know that the candidates are eager and ready to be interviewed and get this process going. So what is the lack of response? What is the delay? And this is not a specific criticism for any individual of council. It's a mindset that somehow, that the situation isn't as dire as it is for our council as it is for our members of our community. Listen, I've been working my entire life. My grandfather put a lawnmower in my hand when I was 9 years old, and never stopped working since then. And so for me, whenever I'm presented with an issue or problem, I'm trying to work it. I don't even sleep right when, unless I find a solution and I find a way and a pathway forward. And now we have to work. We got to find solutions.
So like you said, the governors and mayors and stuff, they're in a tough position with the decision making as far as making the right execution as far as the calls that needs to be made. But of course, back to the whole team aspect, communication is a big deal.
Communication is vital.
What have the communication been like from the governor's side to the different localities? Because it seems as though everyone is torn in the middle. Like a lot of people wanted everything to open up like 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. Some people saying we should not open up until another 2 or 3 weeks. Mm-hmm. So back to politics and back to those that are on the front line making the decisions. Not everybody's going to be happy.
Well, that's the society we live in, and that's right. one of the toughest things about being a politician, but also it's one of the tough things about being a leader. you have to understand you are not going to be able to make everyone happy, right? But you have to make a decision that's going to benefit the masses, and you got to be able to live with it. Now, far as the mayors and the localities, everyone is dealing with a particular COVID from a different perspective, right? Because our economy is based on tourism, so we need the beaches and the open, right? Restaurants. But Williamsburg is not necessarily, their economy is completely different. Norfolk, they have a beach, but their beach is not necessarily driven by tourism. They'll have a lot of other small businesses, such as restaurants, that they depend on for dollars. When you look at also Northern Virginia, they have more of a city type of atmosphere where everyone is compacted, and they have higher cases of COVID. And you have, one central person in authority, such as the governor. That's a heavy crown, to a heavy hat to carry right now when you are trying to find a solution that benefits everyone. And we also understand that, COVID has particularly hit Black and brown communities the hardest. And so here's where my sociologist hat comes in, all right, because I got my Bachelor of Science degree in sociology. Why is it that COVID or any other, type of public emergency, whether it's hurricanes, whether it's, this pandemic, why is it that members who are necessarily in the most dire situation, impoverished community, why are they always the most severely hit, right? Or why do they always take the brunt of bad situation? It's because as not only as a society, but as a system that we're in, we don't do enough to lift people out of those situations, right? We don't do enough to present and bring more opportunities for those people to escape poverty. We can go into the whole housing situation about Section 8. Section 8 is supposed to help provide housing from those trying to get a leg up, but there are certain requirements that don't allow, a father or two working parents to be on Section 8. And then if the mom or the dad, if they able to a lot more money, but then the rent goes up, so they're stuck in the same predicament. That type of society issues is what is the reason why those, and not necessarily Black and brown, but anyone who are below the poverty line or right at the poverty line, is why they stay there, because of the way our society has necessarily been functioning. But back to the governor, I think he's finding out and he's understanding as well that this is an issue that's going to require different solutions. And for me, I take it to we live in such a diverse community, right? You look at the western part of our state is Roanoke, Blacksburg, where I went to school at. It's majority country, right? They have a different outlook than say Northern Virginia. We have primarily the largest. We do have the largest beach here in Virginia Beach. So it's one of those things where you have to be flexible, you have to adapt, and you have to be able to find a solution that everyone, a compromise, so to speak, that everyone can get behind. But it's extremely tough. I wouldn't want to be in the governor's shoes right now.
So with the reopening in the phases, as far as that structure is concerned, it seems as though as an economy here in Virginia Beach that's driven on tourism, there's going to be some delay going into that peak season. And a lot of protesters was out there last weekend asking for stuff to be open back full swing. Do you think opening in phases was flexibility and that's a good move?
Well, again, I think it's a move, but obviously you can't. The most important thing is health, the health of our society, right? That's the most important thing. How do you compare someone's health to making $1, right? But at some point you understand that people cannot stay indoors forever. You can't just be in a shell and not ever come out. But it's one of those things, and it's the unknown. How do you mitigate those the issues of spreading COVID-19, but also making sure that a city like ours, Virginia Beach, are able to salvage some part of the tourist season, because regardless or not, we're going to take a hit. Everyone is going to take a real hit to their budgets and their revenues this year throughout the world, not just the United States or Virginia. But it's, what can we salvage? What can we salvage? What part of that can we salvage? And more people are outspoken than others. I mean, that's your First Amendment right. I just would caution everyone to remind everyone that we live in this society together, right? There's a thing called the social contract that we all supposed to buy into. And if we don't, then that's when society begins to break down.
We haven't even been quarantined that long, for people to get so restless.
Yeah.
They were getting restless at week 3, protesting. And it's like, what's more important? Like you said, what's more important, your lives or a dollar? So I agree with you, man. I think that, it's beneficial for us to, if we did follow the steps and follow the guidelines, we probably would be further out of this than we are. But some people were just, so adamant about, well, I'm not able to open my business and things like that. It kind of puts us, in my opinion, puts us at risk for when things are opening up to receive an even bigger blow than what we had before.
Right. And in a large part, this is why it's so important to have leadership, because leadership is it's not supposed to spread that fear. It's when you're scared and you have this fear, and all this fear is rightly placed. It's not something that people are just drawing up about. I mean, it's serious, because your livelihoods are at stake, right? If I can't open my business, I can't pay my rent. I can't pay maybe my house bill, my medical bills. I can't pay for my daughter or my family members. I mean, it's a real issue. And so the question is, how do we balance that? It's not necessarily putting the economy ahead of your health, and it's not putting, necessarily your health ahead of the economy. Is how do you balance that so that we are keeping you safe, but and we also are making sure that we can open up in a responsible manner. And I think that's where we're getting to. That initial shock factor when COVID hit was obviously rightfully placed, and we should hunker down and make sure we enforce the social distancing and do anything we can do to prevent the spread of COVID. And now I think, where we are, we're adjusting to it on the fly. It's like, we need to open, because not only that, but our schools, the firemen, the cities, the businesses, the restaurant, you are going to need to be able to function in some capacity to keep society going.
Right.
So I think that's where we are. So to answer your question, I do think the phases is a good plan. And I also think, finding that pathway forward is one that has to happen with coordination and with the sound plan in place.
So speaking of businesses and being able to function, also the inability for folks to not only pay rent in their homes, but also those businesses have carrying costs as well too. Mm-hmm. The government rolled out the PPP program, which helped some, that needed it. It helped some people that didn't need it, right? And some that needed it didn't get it at all.
Right.
It seems as though the city also had, some grants and stuff. Am I understanding that right, or was that?
Yeah, no, you're understanding right.
Okay.
So throughout the CARES Act, it's so easy to. I'm a solution oriented type of person, because it's so easy to talk about the problems you have or what someone isn't doing right. It's so easy to find that criticism in someone, and there were a lot of problems with the CARES Act, which you were talking about really the small businesses being able to qualify for the small business loans and the PP payment protection program. a lot of those funds were designed to go to small business, but you had large corporations swallowing it up, right? And and which is mind-boggling, but it is, to me, is one of those things, and this is why it goes back to, everything goes back to voting. Because what is the true definition of a small business? You know, right now the federal government said a small business was like 500 employees or less, right? And so the mom and pops who maybe had like 10 or 12 or staff less than 20, there's no way they were able to get access to those funds. So we need to redefine or define exactly what is a small business, but that's at the federal level. And I spoke to Senator Mark Warner about that. We're going to be working on that pretty soon. But then your next question is, answer your next question. In the CARES Act actually provided some funding from the states to actually help us localities with small businesses. And so one of the things we've done here at Virginia Beach is we have, and this money we actually had set aside from our general fund. We put money inside of EDIP, I think about, if I'm not mistaken, 1.5 million, I believe it was, into our economic development investment program, where we set this money aside to help businesses pay rent, just and things like the thing for housing and preservation. There was money from the CARES Act that came down, and so Virginia Beach implemented a program where those who are in low income housing or finding or hit hardest by COVID find resources to help them also with their rent and mortgage evictions as well.
Are any of those funds still available?
I'm glad you asked that. So, right, we just added more money inside the EDIP program, but the housing program had, I believe, more funding is coming. Right now, though, they have ceased taking applications because you can, the first 2 days it opened, it just swam to over 600 applications. And in order to get through those applications and start processing those applications, they had to put a hold on that.
Got you.
It's about, I know we're getting ready to finish up here. About three things I wanted to touch on quickly.
Yeah. We got time. We got time today.
Kind of shifting gears a little bit. I don't want to put you on the spot, but I don't know if this is a tight-lipped subject or not. But I saw a picture of a facility that's coming soon in Virginia Beach. I don't know if that's the truth or what, but if you know anything about it, can you touch on it? I saw a picture online from one of the sports sites.
I don't know what picture you're referring to.
There was a picture on one of the sports Twitter pages of a sports facility coming to Virginia Beach.
Yes,
basketball courts.
Yes, so I can talk about that. Yes, that is coming. Our sports center, so to speak, is located off of 19th Street in Virginia Beach. It's on schedule to be completed. Last I checked, in November, but because of COVID, I'm not sure when that opening date would be. But it's a state-of-the-art facility. It has a hydraulic track in there, and it's the only standalone track that's not associated with the university or any other place, like that around in our region. And I believe in our region, I believe our eastern seaboard below Pennsylvania, I believe. But yes, it has state-of-the-art basketball courts. And one of the things, it has a dining center. It has a technology center. I mean, it's completely state-of-the-art. And it's something it's going to bring a lot of tourism dollars to Virginia Beach. We're looking to host a lot of different sports events. In fact, I don't know if I can share that with you, but we're going to host a lot of sports events, and hopefully we can get some NCAA championships here.
Yeah, it just seems like, I mean, I've known about it, I heard about it, but it just seems like it's been so almost like a community secret. Like, so many people haven't heard about it or know it's coming, but I've heard some great things about it. If I had to guess, I'm sure you have some influence or involvement there, and with you being a sports guy, and it was just like the perfect storm to bring the sports down to that area, in this area that has so many athletes and things like that. So I heard it has a track. I heard it has basketball court. Does it have a pool? Have pool as well? Or no?
It doesn't have a pool.
Okay, gotcha.
It has an enormous amount of basketball courts as well, volleyball courts, and the way they interchange the courts is so innovative because they actually went down to Olympic site, I believe, out in Utah, and learned a lot of information from them and brought it back and designed it into this facility as well. One of the things that's special about this sports complex is that it's trying to make Virginia Beach a year-round destination. So, usually when the wintertime comes, our boardwalk and oceanfront area, our city is kind of just quiet, hush-hush. But this facility is going to make sure we are a year-round destination and competing for our market share of those athletic programs.
Right. And I think that's what's important about what we talked about earlier, just having somebody in office or in government that is going to drive home those, just not being stagnant. I think a lot of cities, a lot of people in place of office, they tend to just be stagnant. They have a position. They don't really do much. They're not looking to push things forward. Again, going back to what I know about you, I know you were looking to push things forward again with something in the water and things such as that. It's important that we look for that when we are voting. We're not just going out to vote for, the more popular person. We're going out to vote for who represents us. And when you think Virginia Beach, you think, a certain demographic or a certain crowd. But to be honest with you, you represent a lot more of the true of what Virginia Beach, truly is. You being from friendship and things such as that, and just a lot of people can identify with you, but not only just identify, but also see that you're pushing to kind of bring the city up to standards of the, like you said, Myrtle Beach or Charlotte and things like that. So I'm looking forward to the sports center myself. For my children.
Yeah.
Selfishly, but I think that's going to be huge for the city.
Yeah, most definitely.
Next year.
So one of the things about something in the water we could talk about, but the sports complex is really important. Is yes, it's going to bring a lot of tourism here, but what's also important is that we contract out with members of our community who live in that area, who can work there, who can make a living there. I mean,
right.
The historical SeaTech area, one of the oldest African American communities in the nation here, and you just placed a $68 million complex in the middle of it. So when we talk about things like gentrification and making sure those who strategic growth areas, that those who live in that general area, that when the property values go up, that they're not just kicked out because they live in local income housing, that they actually have the means to stay there, opportunity and access to those jobs. That's what I fight for. There's a battery plant, I believe GTS, that's on Owls Creek, which is on Burnet Road, which is which is a huge facility there. But again, it's in the SeaTech community, and they're going to be producing all kind of high tech things there. All right, then the people there in that area, the general vicinity of SeaTech, not just SeaTech, but Virginia Beach, but specifically SeaTech, they need to be able to have access to those jobs. They need to be working there. It's not enough for you to just come and just place facility of that magnitude that's great for our city, that brings in a lot of dollars to our city. That's great, and that's what we want. But also you have to make sure you are mindful of the communities which you are placing these businesses in, because you don't want to, first of all, change the fabric of that community and have that community lose its identity. So that's important for me. particularly when I look at the things that's happening in Norfolk and the St. Paul's quadrant, which is a whole completely, you know, different city, but those things matter as well. And so whenever, you know, I bring that different perspective to council, you know, and it's one that has been missing for so long. You know, it's not enough that, you know, every now and then they fix a street, or they fix a stoplight, or they, you know, they come in, they put in a sidewalk and they say you should be happy with that. No, this is about equity. You know, it's about equality. It's about making sure everybody has access. I'm not pro-black. I'm pro-human. I'm pro-life. You know what I mean? I want everybody to have the same opportunity and access. So it's another reason why, you know, it's pushing for the implementation of from the recommendations from the disparity study. You know, we know Virginia Beach did its first ever disparity study a couple of years ago, and we've seen that, you know, SWAM businesses, small women, minority-owned businesses, and disabled veteran-owned businesses were substantially underutilized in our city, right? And so now for this year's budget, it's like, no, we need to move forward with implementing those recommendations to bring that equity, bring it on par so everybody has opportunity. And that's what, you know, that's what I look for when I'm on council. That's what I try to push. It's tough though, because it's politics, you know, it's the world, and people feel most comfortable placing you in their box, you know, in their box, because it makes them feel good. And I'm just like, listen, like, I'm trying to move the city forward, you know, help me do that. I don't care what you look like, your affiliation. If you want to help Virginia Beach be the best, let's do it together. I can't do it by myself. So. Hey, come on, Cavelle, you over there quiet, man.
No. Well, Aaron said he had 3 things, and he asked you one, so I think you got 2 more, right?
No, I wanted to touch on 3 things. I think I touched on 2. Well, do you want to talk about something in the water at all before I move on to something else?
Yeah. So I mean, I think you know, first of all, I don't think anyone's more disappointed, you know, than I am. Something in the water, you know, as the COVID happened this year. I specifically did not want to know like who was coming, who was going to perform, because I wanted to be surprised as well. But again, this goes back to the first year of Something in the Water, how memorable it was to have, you know, Pharrell Williams to just, first of all, have this idea and to bring it back here to Virginia Beach. I think a lot of people, you know, they heard about the how bad College Beach weekend was, right? But what they didn't know is businesses were saying they was losing over $1 million in revenues that weekend, and how because they had to close up, they were closing up, and how the city of Virginia Beach was spending almost $250,000 on that weekend alone just for police service, just for the police to go out there and to keep everything, you know, calm and things like that. And yet council reached out to, you know, Pharrell, and Pharrell comes in with this, you know, out of the box, like thinking that he can put on this festival on the beach, but it wasn't necessarily to have a party. It was to celebrate our diversity. You know, it's something in the water. You know, you got athletes, politicians, you know, you got movie stars, you got big businesses, you got art, you got culture. It was to celebrate all of that. And man, it was, I was scratching my head, but it's another reason why I'm running for mayor, because I could not understand why, you know, people, you know, our council did not want to necessarily get behind it. You know, it was almost as if, for example, I remember we had our community meeting at the Virginia Beach Convention Center, and we had almost 900 some constituents there that night from all over the city. I mean, from everybody's district. And I was the only council member there to answer all of these questions. You know, I didn't do it alone. The staff was amazing. Like, I mean, our staff from our public works to our communications to our first responders to our Virginia Beach Volunteer Rescue Squad. I mean, I was there with them, but to have no one else from a leadership perspective on council was really an eye opener, because I'm like, these are people from all over our city. We need to be united in making sure we bring this forward. And so it was only cool to say everyone supported it after nothing happened that weekend. You know what I mean?
I was just about to ask you that. As far as the numbers are concerned with the revenue, I mean, there's been a lot of numbers thrown out as far as what Something in the Water did, as far as the influx of revenue year over year, from the Airbnbs to the restaurants to Uber drivers to everyone that made more money than usual, that obviously paid more taxes than usual. I understand that an analysis was done to really give an idea of how much money was brought into the city because of Something in the Water.
Right.
Do you have an idea what that number was?
Yeah, so Something in the Water in its initial year, it brought in it had an economic impact of $21.7 million for the city of Virginia Beach. It brought in over $2 million, over $2 million of emissions tax. Now, emissions tax is basically money you can't account for in your general fund. It's money you only get when someone pays an admission, pay an admission. So that's all revenue. That's all revenue because it's not projected revenue because it's all plus, so to speak. And so, this leads me to my next point. Something in the Water is an economic investment. For good is great that we can celebrate our diversity and culture, but from the business standpoint, it's smart business. If you look at it, Virginia City, Virginia Beach, in its first year, only sponsorship or only invested $250,000, right? On a weekend that it was already spending $239,000. So the true investment is probably like 11, 10 grand. But the official sponsorship package was $250,000, right? And the city had an economic impact of $21.7 million. Now,
it's a nice investment.
Yes, a very nice investment. Also, we did a calculation. We placed a value on the earned media attention it got, right? Because Something in the Water reached across the world. And that value was somewhere in the ballpark of $80 million, right, of free advertisement that Something in the Water brought in. And so I scratched my head, and it's mind-boggling that earlier this year, when we were talking about increasing the sponsorship for Something in the Water, and not using money or taking money out of our general fund, but basically letting the festival make its own money, that we will reinvest that because it's going to create a strong partnership in years to come. That I found it mind-boggling that people were against that. The council was hesitant in doing this after all the positive numbers we saw from the business side of it. I think we saw South by Southwest generated $200+ million a year, and I guarantee it took over 20 years to get there. I believe, a decade or something for South by Southwest to get there. Something in the Water in its first year got up to $21 million economic impacts. It's smart business. So why wouldn't you want to reinvest and say, all right, we're getting a heck of a return on this. Why would we want to create that strong partnership? But now, I think people are seeing the light because after COVID, or during COVID, you're going to be looking forward to Something in the Water, right? Bringing back.
I heard there was even an impact revenue-wise on other surrounding cities.
Listen, there's not a market in the surrounding area, and I believe all the way up to Richmond, that did not have a positive net income from Something in the Water. There's not a market that did not. In fact, all of the numbers that we had, that $21.7 million was directly for Virginia Beach. I believe it was $24.7 million for our region, economic impact. But those numbers were very conservative. They were so conservative because the fact that we know a lot of people didn't have tickets, right? Who just came down, spent money in restaurants that were open, or spent money on memorabilia or just gas and phone. All of those things that were byproducts, or they call indirect revenues, we could not necessarily account for. We can only account for the tickets that were sold. I believe the Honor Wall from ODU's economics, from ODU University, professor of economics, he can tell you best that those numbers are very conservative. So this mindset, right, that once again, Virginia Beach, we are in a place to take the next step forward. What is the hesitation when this is a no-brainer? This is a no. We didn't lose money. It's a first-year festival that made money, and that's the mindset where we're trying to. It's like we have to take this next step. Let's come on now. We can be better than this. We can be great. Let's live up to our potential. Let's exceed our potential. Sorry, I get real passionate about our city. I love to give just. I want us to be. We could be special if we work together and take this step. And I'm just.
You want a sports team?
So what?
You want a sports franchise?
I think our region can handle it. I really do. I think our region could handle a sports team. I know there's a lot about the fluctuation of our military, right? But look, there may be fluctuation of our personnel, but there's consistently always, personnel here in Hampton Roads. We have the world's largest naval base here in Norfolk. Virginia Beach in itself has Oceana, Master Jet Base. We have Dam Neck. We share a base, Little Creek. And so we have that, but also what we have is an area that's prime and known for putting out star athletes and talents. Yeah. Not just in football, but basketball. You got the Uptons, you got the Mark Reynolds of the world, the Zimmermans of the world. You got AI, you got Vic, you got all the football players. Myself, you have Cam, you got so many different people at this area is prime for that. I think we can handle it.
And then they're leaving to go everywhere else, huh?
Right. It's listen. The Redskins come down to Richmond and host their training camp in Richmond. I believe Hampton Roads 757. We can host a team as long as I get to name it. As long as I get to name it.
Yeah, I'm sure
I got
you
a
can.
good name too.
Look at
I got a good name. I would say it, but somebody might write and try to copyright it already. I got a good name.
Yeah, okay. But look at what's going on in Suffolk. If I'm not mistaken, Amazon is building a huge base out there that's going to rival like one of the biggest sites on the East Coast here as far as their hubs is concerned. That's bringing in a lot of money. But here's the mind frame though, right? For those that's your boy Jeff Bezos.
Oh yeah, I know, right? That's Jeff Bezos. But here's the mind frame of where we are when you look at our region. Now, I thank God I grew up in the generation I did, because those older generation is almost like, there's always been a problem with the 7 cities working together, right? It's like, oh, my city is this. That's always been a problem. But now what we are seeing is that regions are working together. Like regions are working together. And one of the things I learned is that, listen, when you work on a team, especially as a safety, I play safety. You can't do the lineman job, the DN job, D tackle job. You can't do the linebacker job, right? I could play linebacker. You can't do their job. You can't play the receiver job. You can't play the quarterback job. You have to be able to build that partnership and work in the team aspect of it. So my point is this: is that Suffolk has so much land for manufacturing that is great. The Amazon is out there, and my hat's off to them. But that's going to help our region, right? Because some people that may work in Suffolk don't live in Suffolk. They may live in Virginia Beach, or live in Chesapeake, or live in Norfolk, right? Norfolk has a central location, where they have their airport, right? So
they got a casino coming out there too.
They got a casino coming, right? Virginia Beach, we have the oceanfront. Why aren't we using our strengths, for the betterment of our entire region? And say, all right, you got the manufacturing, we got the beach, Norfolk, you got the central location. Let's all put that together and create this super region. Why can't 757 be greater than where we are? And I think what scares people is when you talk about a region, people think all of a sudden you're going to come under one authority. You want to lose your authority. It's like, no.
Or your identity.
Right, or your identity. No, Virginia Beach, we still have our identity. You still have a council. Norfolk still has a council. We have to be able to work more so together. And, we do have groups called like Coretta, Hampton Roads Economic Development Authority. They're supposed to help spread a lot of economy throughout our region. But if you're not passionate about it, if you're not really bringing humility to the table and think really innovatively, where you can create sharing formulas, then we're going to continuously get what we get.
So how you feel about the light rail coming to Virginia Beach? It seems like that keep getting shut down.
Yeah, I mean, why? Why do you think it keeps getting shut down?
Virginia Beach is like, whoa.
Where's it now? What coming?
The light rail.
Oh, the light rail. Yeah.
I mean, and that's a great topic to discuss. I think, I'm as a commissioner for the Hampton Roads Transit. That's one of the things, we talk about is how do we provide more transportation and connect our region, right? And
something like that would be important if even for something in the water, right? Because the traffic is ridiculous.
It's exactly, and that's to me is the, and I'm still learning, and there's a lot of, you got to see your way around the whole issue. But we need adequate transportation. There's not enough parking at the oceanfront. But I don't understand, those who say there's not enough parking at the oceanfront, but yet they don't want light rail to extend to the oceanfront. So where's the disconnect where's the logic in that, right? And so I think whatever solution we come up with, it has to be one that's going to allow people ease of access. Also think about their environment, get more cars off the road, right? And then also, how can we better connect our community? If we understand the trends, especially younger millennials, I'm at the older aspect of millennials. Younger millennials, they don't want to own cars. Aaron, you probably know this more than most. My son, he doesn't want to drive. I think he's Generation X or Z. I always get them mixed up. But they don't want to own cars. You know why? Right. Because number one, wages aren't where they should be, right? Because how can someone young pay personal property tax on a vehicle or car insurance when they can't necessarily find a job that's going to help them support that? They don't want to own homes because number one, they feel as though, hey, I don't like my job and I just want to move and go somewhere else. They're the population who's always on the move. And I tell you, the city and the region that can capture that population is already moved. One will sustain their city for futures to come.
Cool. You got anything else, Aaron?
Yeah, I guess really just more so a statement. We talked about, I guess, being an inspiration in the youth and things such as that. What's important about this live and things that you see is, you see men of color. Of course, you were a football player, so but doing more than just playing a sport. Right. Or just entertainment. I think that in our community, it's so common to automatically, at the age of 10, the kid wants to be a football player. Nothing wrong with that, but it's so much more that we can aspire to be. When I was in school, coming up in middle school and high school, to be honest with you, to me and my friends and peers, the coolest guy around was my dad. You know, my dad was an insurance agent. You know, people wanted, you're right. So when you think about it, you know, I mean, he had the you know, the things that you aspire to have or acquire. And I think it's important as a community to see yourself, a person like you, and see a person like you, Cavelle, see a person like myself, you know, doing what a child would aspire to be. And we weren't in the streets.
Right.
We weren't, you know, rapping, and we weren't playing basketball. Well, you play football, but us, we weren't. Right. So again, there's nothing wrong with wanting to be an entertainer. There's nothing wrong with wanting to be a sports figure. But what about that kid that's not athletic, that lives in your community of friendship, that doesn't want to play football? You know, he needs to know that he can be mayor. That kid can be an engineer. You know, that kid can be an insurance agent. That kid can, you know, there's so many that he can be on his own landscaping company. You know, so I think it's very important when we're doing our lives and when we're you know, out there talking to the youth in the community. I tell kids all the time, you know, you can follow the guy in the streets, but more than likely they don't make as much as me, or make as much as my brother, or make as much as this person. Why would you choose that route? You know, so again, it's important that I'm talking to you guys. I admire you guys. I salute you guys, because these are the examples that I want to drive home, that I want our kids to see and aspire to be, that if football or basketball or music doesn't necessarily work out, you know, there's so much more for us to, you know, attain, and for you to attain, and we can all achieve that.
Thanks.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point there, Aaron, because it's funny. While Councilman Aaron was speaking earlier, and he mentioned my alma mater, ODU, I didn't want to interrupt him to say go Monarchs, right? But then I realized that not only myself graduated from college, ODU, but you graduated from Hampton, right? Pirate.
Yes,
he graduated from Virginia Tech, right?
Yep.
So I don't think it's a coincidence that we are all excelling in our careers and we all have a higher level education, right? That's also very important, right? And it doesn't happen too often where you see people get together and speak about the upliftment of the community and things like that, and they're doing well, right? Like you mentioned, you're doing very well in your career as an insurance agent. I'm doing well in real estate, and we have councilman here excelling in politics and has a vision to move the city forward. That's three very strong examples of what you can do other than the usual stuff that you see. And this is just us, right? We have a lot of friends and other people, you know, that's not here that we know are just like us. And we should definitely find ways to try to highlight that and put that positive image out there to make it be known that, hey, you know, there are other avenues to do very well in life besides the other routes if, you know, those things don't work out.
So I think, I mean, that's a great point, and that's why my hat's off to, you know, particularly Aaron. You know, man, you know, back then, I would see you, and not even back then, I see you all the time working with the youth, and for me, that's so important because it's not enough to just show up every now and then, and you know, you give a speech or you talk about it. Like, it has to be some consistency there. You have consistently been involved. You know, with the youth. And that's so important, man, because, you know, with someone like me who, not saying my mom was working, again, like I said, and my father wasn't there, like, I had those coaches such as yourself and certain community leaders who made sure held me accountable, right? And I had teachers too, and who, that's hats off to the teachers who have so been innovative throughout this COVID, but had those certain individual teachers too who saw more than just a little black kid coming from the ghetto, right? Like who looked at me and was like, all right, you want to play football? All right, you gotta go to college first. Who challenged me, you know, but worked with me, who tutored me, who gave me the extra time and credit to actually be more successful in the classroom. And but that, to me, that it all comes back to those people who are in your community who you can reach out and touch, right? Who you have access to. And that's something you have consistently led on, because if I didn't have, say, like, a Jay Lane or Mark Butts, they were my high school coach and middle school coaches who came around the hood, essentially
Right.
came around. I felt like, wow, he in my neighborhood, so he really know what I'm going through. You know what I mean? He could relate, and so that challenged me to be in school, like making sure I'm doing my best and being on my guard, because I never knew when Jay Lane or someone that could reach out and touch me and be like, hey, you stepping out of line.
Right.
That's why when you ask me, or anyone asks me, can you come, talk to our kids? Can you just? I'm like, I'm there, because they always on guard, because they never know. I turn around, Aaron Rouse might be standing over my shoulder, like, what you doing? Holding you accountable. Man, but that's my hat's off. My hat's off to you, and that takes dedication, and it takes a certain amount of passion and love. That is, like you could be. And I just met you, Mr. Cavelle. You know what I mean? I'm gonna learn more about you too. I just been Aaron for such a while. I know Aaron you could be doing anything other with your time. You know what I mean? Like you access opportunities, so many different fields and things. But when I see you brought all those. The greatest, one of the good memories I have of you is when I believe Cam Chancellor was holding his basketball, and you had like your team with you, and they were trying to get Marshawn Lynch attention or something like that. And I was like, y'all want Marshawn? Remember that?
Yeah. You got to introduce all the players.
Right. I was like, hold on, I'm gonna get them for y'all. You know what I mean? Like, but for me, I was more impressed with you, because I'm like, man, he could have came and kicked it with the fellas and been out there having a good time, but he sit here and he brought, 7 or 8. I forgot how many kids was. It was a lot of them. 7 or 8 kids with him to experience this, and that's what it's about. Those kids will never forget that. They'll never forget you took someone like you took the time to to have that impression on them and say, look, I care about y'all. And hold them accountable. You got to do right. Don't be no knucklehead, And
nice. Shout out to you, Aaron.
I appreciate that, man. And if, real quick, if I can touch on that, where I got that from is my parents. It was nothing. And again, they could have been doing anything. If people in the Harbor North community in Chesapeake probably remember, we went out there one day and we saw some kids shooting. I was little, young, maybe 8, 9, 10 years old, shooting the basketball on a basket, hung up on a pole. My dad was out there the next day hanging a real basketball court. It was nothing for us to be at dinner with, our new cousin, somebody that they had brought in, and my dad and my mom had brought in, not get any kind of government assistance, but just on their own, on their dollar, on their own, just their passion to always give back to the community. So when I got to myself to a position where I could, I believe that it was my duty, to kind of make sure that I give to my community, even if I didn't come from that community. It was my duty to always reach back to be that example, that same example that I spoke about my dad earlier. I want to be that to my son. I want my son's best friends are kids from that football team, and that always felt like, who am I if I can't, reach back and make sure that I'm bringing everybody along, and it's a passion of mine.
Most definitely. Mr. Cavelle, I don't mean to turn the tables one day to ask you a couple questions, but I hear the accent. I'm wondering where are you from?
Oh, I'm originally from Trinidad and Tobago.
Trinidad, okay.
Yeah, from the Caribbean. That's where I grew up, and then my mom had migrated to the United States. She actually used to be in Boston, and I moved to Boston, and then spent a short time there. Realized that I wanted more single parent. Also wanted a college degree. Grew up in the hood, rough neighborhood, and I was in Roxbury, Boston. If you know anything about Boston, it's rough over there. And based
Not
on
just the winners, right?
exactly. Based on where I came from, it was getting really easy for me to start getting in my comfort zone. So that's how I ended up joining the military. And I was in the Navy for 4 years, stationed in Norfolk, and that's what brought me to Virginia.
Thank you for your service.
Yeah, well, it was a pleasure. I had a great time. I always say the best decision I ever made was joining the Navy. And the next best decision was getting up. Got out 4 years later, met a lot of good peeps, still really good friends with them, because if it's one thing, college, the military, and also your early childhood, that's where you build strong brotherhoods and stuff like that. When you get older, you don't really make really a lot of new connections. So I still got a lot of strong, relationships from being in the military, and came to Virginia. Loved Norfolk, really, really loved Norfolk. That's where I stayed for a long time. But, met a young lady, by the name of Camille, my wife. She was living in Virginia Beach. And
we got a new voter over here. That's
so what happened. I ended up moving to Virginia Beach, and now I got a family, 5 beautiful kids.
That's awesome.
And doing this real estate thing for 10 years now, and I love Virginia. I love Virginia Beach. Meet a lot of great people in my business, such as Mr. Keels over there. And
that's awesome. If I could touch on one thing, particularly in the military, I have such a profound respect for those who have served and willing to serve, because they always tell you less than 1% of our population serve. You know what I mean? Like less than 1%, and man, it's such a sacrifice. Not only on you, I don't know if you met your wife then. I don't think you did, but it's on a sacrifice for your families as well. And when my grandfather was born in 1918.
Whoa!
And, he's passed away now.
Rest in peace.
But he was in the Army. He would tell me so many stories, and I would just sit and listen to him, especially about an African American soldier in those times. It's essentially how they were treated and things he had to go through. But then I still had, and I still have, so much respect. I had an opportunity to do an underway with the USS John C. Stennis one time.
Okay.
With the Stennis, and I'm on this ship, and the ship is huge, and I got a good sense of aircraft carrier, right?
Yeah.
I have a great sense of direction, man, but I was on that ship. I didn't know what was up, what was down, what was left, what was right.
Man, it's a city.
The most inspirational thing I saw were these sailors, man. They were 18, 19, 20, 21 years old, and they were handling this $4.5 billion ship, everything from the ordnances to the jets to plane and driving the ship. And these are 18 and 19, 20. Yeah. And man, I was so impressed with that.
That's who run it. That's who run everything. I joined the Navy at 18. As a matter of fact, at 17, I spoke to the recruiter and I was ready to sign up, but I would have to get my mom's signature to join at 17. And if I waited until I was 18, I would have been able to sign for myself. And I also would have been able to go in at a higher rank because I would have been able to enter a program. So on my 18th birthday, I was in MEP signing paperwork to go into the Navy. And most of my peers, the people who are, doing the air traffic control, the people on the flight deck directing the planes, steering the ship in the engine room. Everyone was my age, 18, 19, 20, 21. And then, you have the higher ups and stuff like that. So I had a really, really great time in the military. As a matter of fact, when COVID just happened and they were looking for answers, I saw that something came out that they were saying that they may bring in, reservists or ex-military who want to come in. I was like, I'll go back for a little while. I didn't mind. I just said, as long as I can keep my beard and keep my hair, I'm game.
No, that got to go. You got to look like this. I had my COVID beard for a while, but soon they said we had councilman meeting again in person. I was like, all right, got to get back to work. Yeah, but yeah, I have a profound. I think that's like one of my hobbies is jets. So I love military aircraft, and so I don't miss not. I'll go to every air show every year. You know, I can name. I pretty much can name every aircraft that flies in these guys around here. And people always get caught off guard. I remember at football practice when I was playing for the Destroyers, Coach Marty Stotthammer was talking, and this F-15 Super Hornet come flying over, and I'm like, he's like, these jets keep flying over. I said, Coach, that's a F-15 Super Hornet, like that. And he was like, how do you know that? I was like, Coach, I grew up here. You know what I mean? Like these jets fly over every day. Like I can name all of those things, man. But that's I have a lot of respect for the military.
Well, that's what's up, man. You break some records today. Normally we don't go over an hour.
Yeah.
You know, but we well over an hour, so your time was much appreciated.
Thank you.
And just in closing here to wrap up, I want to say a couple of key points that I picked up from what you had to share with us is you said communication is definitely very vital, with everything we do, and you stressed on why that is. You also spoke about the importance of leadership. You spoke about moving the city forward, doing it as a team. It doesn't matter who got the credit or who's the one that came up with the idea. If it's helping the home team, then let's go. You spoke about that. Of course, you spoke about the importance of voting, and we touched on what can make a difference in the different things that happen in the community and what we can do to avoid it. And we end up talking about, police chiefs and stuff like that. And you mentioned that the city is looking for a new police chief, and it would be important to make sure that we pay attention to that, so that way we could put someone there that understand our concerns, right? And then you also mentioned the fact that the city looking for a new city manager, correct?
Yes,
the city manager also hires a police chief, which I never knew, right? So you shared a lot of valid, important information here that I think would go a long way. Everyone that tuned in learned a lot about yourself, about the city. You spoke about, of course, something in the water, the impact that it had not only in Virginia Beach, the 21 plus million, but also in all the other localities running all the way up to Richmond, the millions that they impacted as well. So I think overall, we just had a really, really good conversation about a lot of things. So I just want to make sure I point out, those things there. Aaron, is there any closing things that you want to mention before we let Councilman Aaron, say anything?
No, I'm good, man. Other than, I'm not a Virginia Beach resident. Well, you know what? I am a Virginia Beach resident for not much longer, but you have my vote. You've always had my support. Things like this is the reason why I think that you've always been willing to just be in the community and get involved, and that's going to always be a good thing for the entire city of whatever city you represent. That being Virginia Beach. So you definitely have my support, man. I've always, admired and saluted you, and I appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you, Aaron. Thank you, Mr. Cavelle, for having me here. It's been a real pleasure, to speak with you all tonight and to have this platform and just have this conversation. This important conversation on so many important issues. I really do appreciate you giving me this platform and my thoughts on everything. Again, I wouldn't be remiss if I didn't mention I am running for mayor. And for those who are listening, rouseformayor.com. And if you got 50 cents, $1, $2, anything goes a long way. And I'm very thankful for anything that you can you can give, especially in this time during COVID. Again, thank you again, and I'm here whenever you guys need me.
Cool. Well, thank you very much. After the video is finished here, you can definitely go into the comment section, leave the comment, leave the website, rouseformayor.com, and make sure people know how to get a hold of you, your different handles and stuff like that, because it's always good to know that we're able to reach the people in office like you and let our voices be heard, because that's very important.
Most definitely.
Thank you so much, and appreciate you guys.
Thank you.
All right, fellas.
All right, man.